It's Saturday, May 24th, and we're tracking potential for tropical development in the East Pacific over the next several days. You can see a lot of convection now blossoming over this region as a direct response to a convectively coupled Kelvin wave, or just a rising cell of air that's been pushing across the East Pacific over the past several days. This time yesterday, we had a bunch of this convection over the open Pacific, and it is now translated east, closer to Central America and Mexico. Now, this is going to be continuing for the next several days, and it's going to sort of incubate, if you will, along the intertropical convergence zone, and this will likely lead to low pressure developments by early week. From there on, we'll likely see the system form into a tropical storm. And from there on, we'll talk about the potential for intensification and land impacts to Mexico as the system will be tracking northwest, and there is some uncertainty in the forecast going forward. Now, looking large scale, the system has a very favorable environment, as you would expect this time of year. You can see these milky white cirrus clouds over Mexico curving clockwise or anticyclonically, which is denoting the northern edge of a high pressure system, which is forming on top of all of this convection, or more so in a direct response to all of this convection. And this is going to promote two things. One is upper level divergence. You can see these milky white cirrus clouds moving away. That's upper level divergence, allowing these storms to breathe, if you will. But alongside that, it's going to help these storms be in a low shear environment. You can see we don't have very strong flow cutting across this zone. We just have very light and variable flow, which is allowing all this convection to blossom. And this is forecast to continue for the next several days. This is out to Monday night local time, and you can see here's that high pressure system still sitting directly over where the convection is, and the nearest trough is well northwest of there, showing that shear is not very strong here. Now, this upper level trough is also fairly important because this is also going to be trying to pull the moisture from the intertropical convergence zone north and help amplify it to help form an area of low pressure. You can see this development happen if we look at the GFS. This is showing you the low level vorticity or spin in the atmosphere in yellow. The wind barb showing you the low level winds, and you can see the intertropical convergence zone highlighted in yellow here, fairly flat line, not really too amplified in many ways by Monday morning. But as we go throughout the early part of the week into Tuesday, into Wednesday, we see this convergence zone begin to amplify in ways. We have more of a wave pattern showing up with in these kinks areas of low pressure developing, and these two lows on the GFS don't really compete with each other. You can see the GFS is very adamant on this first one forming and becoming a strong hurricane at some point, but this is going to be one big uncertainty that we have with this kind of a monsoon trough, or intertropical convergence zone breakdown, as it's called. And the uncertainty is that we can get multiple areas of low pressure developing, and oftentimes you'll see models struggle to pick out exactly where an area of low pressure will form, but also which one will become dominant. You can see again, we have two lobes of low pressure developing on the GFS, and let's pretend for a second that the GFS is wrong on this, and this is not going to be nearly as strong as it is this eastern lobe. So we just have two weak areas of low pressure. Naturally, what these are going to do is they're going to revolve around each other. It's going to do what's called the Fujiwara effect. And in that type of a pattern, those lows are going to revolve around each other until one eventually absorbs the other and becomes the dominant area of low pressure. And that can take time. And what that can do is it can halt the time for tropical development to occur. So instead of getting, say, a strong hurricane like the GFS is showing, you just get a more broad, weak tropical storm that maybe develops as it tracks northwest. And then once it's all consolidated, maybe tries to get towards hurricane intensity before reaching cooler waters further northwest. And alongside that, there's also uncertainty onto where the system will form. There's no guarantee that we'll get a system forming here as far as the GFS depicts. The European is showing this. You can see on the low-level spin plot on the European. It does still form a tropical cyclone. That's a consensus for most global models right now, but it's way further west on the model, and this initial starting point difference makes a huge difference onto how much intensification we see and how the system tracks. As if we look at the sea surface temperatures, right now, you can see all this warm water is bottled up towards Mexico. It drops off fairly quickly as you go towards Baja California, further northwest. So if a storm forms here, like on the European, it likely will not consolidate enough and have enough time to intensify in the warm waters before it reaches the more stable air with the cool water further northwest. Conversely, in the GFS scenario, the system develops fairly early, and it has a lot more time to develop and consolidate in the warm water, and for that reason, the GFS shows intensification into a stronger hurricane. Now, usually what happens between these two models is they do have their own select biases. The GFS usually goes strong, European usually goes very weak. Is you get something in the middle. So my best guess right now on what we'll likely see is we'll see something of a tropical storm form around here, and then it may try to go for hurricane intensity before it tracks northwest into cooler waters. And firstly, what we'll need to do is get a disturbance formed out of this, as we really don't know where it's going to form, like I just mentioned. But we can talk a little bit about the steering pattern for the system and could it impact Mexico at some point as it tracks northwest. Now, the large scale pattern is going to be having the system track northwest as the mid level steering flow over North America as a whole. It is showing you high pressure anomaly and low pressure anomaly, red being more high pressure than normal, blue being more low pressure than normal. And what you can see here is that we have this high pressure building across the western part of the United States. And this is cutting across, or on top of rather, an upper trough that's dug in over northwestern Mexico. And when this type of a pattern occurs, is what we call an anticyclonic wave break pattern. And what this can often lead to is a cutoff upper level low on the southeast flank of this wave break pattern. What this also does is it amplifies the pattern. So we have this trough digging in here, and then we see high pressure development east of that over Mexico. This ridge is going to be the primary steering factor to start things off. You can see this in the model. We have this high pressure in red here over Mexico and the Gulf, tracking the system towards the northwest. Though some uncertainty comes with this upper level low, as when lows cut off like this, it can be more difficult for the models to grasp. You can see on this particular run in the GFS, the low is positioned over Baja California, and if it's further east, it would be more inclined to set a western edge on this bridge, further east, more across Mexico. And all the storm's going to do is track along the edge of this ridge. So if the western edge is further east, the storm's going to follow that and go closer to Mexico. And you can see on this specific run, we see the storm come into Mexico on this forecast. Now, this is highly variable. I'll go through several different runs of the GFS, and you can see the upper level low changes, which causes the ridge to change, which these two features changing causes this storm to change in its track. And we had to start at the beginning here. We needed a disturbance to form in the first place to figure out any kind of semblance of where the system may go. But what this does show us is that if a scenario does occur where the system may form a little earlier, may get a little stronger, it will be more inclined to feel the flow of more upper level flow features like this upper level low. And if a GFS scenario comes true, it may be more likely that we see a system try to get close to Mexico. Climatology would suggest against that, but sometimes these storms do go against climatology. And really what I'm trying to express here is that there is uncertainty in the track, as you would expect, but it's something to monitor along the coast of Mexico. And it's a reminder that we are in hurricane season, and even if the system does not track towards Mexico and make landfall, you don't need a storm making landfall to have significant impact here. If the system gets fairly close, it can bring deep tropical moisture up into mountainous terrain, which can lead to heavy rainfall. Alongside that, it's another reminder, hey, it's hurricane season, and you need to be prepared for this hurricane season, as we're likely seeing, similar to last year, storms that are closer to home here. So it's always worthwhile being prepared ahead of time, even if the system doesn't occur, just in case later down the line in the season we do see a storm coming in. My best guess for what the system may do is that we'll see a storm develop out to sea. It may try to become a hurricane, but will likely run into cooler water before that point, and it may track north towards Baja California, weakening considerably as it does so. Maybe not a tropical storm by then, but we might see deep tropical moisture be brought to several areas in Mexico. So it's worthwhile watching for the next several days. As of right now, the Hurricane Center has an 80% chance of development on this disturbance, and I would be inclined to agree with that. Most models are in agreement on tropical development occurring, and you can see the development area there staying well offshore of Mexico for now. But again, we'll watch it for the next several days, see what it does, see if it does try to go close to any of these land areas. But like I mentioned, we first need to get through the step of getting a disturbance formed, so then that from that point on, we can actually have a point to grasp onto, a point to anchor onto, if you will, and then track beyond that point. And that's more so the incentive that you expect at this kind of a range, being 7 days out from even any impacts occurring to land masses. That's all that I've got for now. Thanks for watching.